You are now listening to Black Coffee, Crime, and Crochet, a true crime podcast where cozy meets criminal, hosted by Jasmine C. Prince. Grab your yarn, pour up an iced coffee, let's sit through the chaos.
All right, y'all. Hey, BC3 crew. Welcome back to Black Coffee, Crime, and Crochet, the cozy corner where we sip something strong, stitch something soft, and talk about the messy, unbelievable world of true crime. All right, so I'm your host, as always, Jasmine C. Prince, and this week we are continuing our October series, Scandal in the Schools. So far we have covered Atlanta and Detroit. Again, sorry for the mix-up of the episodes. Hopefully y'all have, figured that out and navigated it. But we did Atlanta and Detroit, cities where school corruption was treated like a full-time group project. But today, we are heading to Evanston, Illinois, where a superintendent once praised for equity reform is now facing a 17-count federal indictment. This one's a wild mix of ambition, betrayal, and the audacity to swipe a district credit card like it was a rewards program. So as always, let's start with the iced coffee of the week. Because y'all gonna need it. So I actually am drinking a Celsius right now because I already had my iced coffee. It was an iced Teddy Graham latte. No. It was an iced honey bun latte. Actually, I had a different recipe, but that one was so good. I'm going to share it with y'all. And I'm going to tag the TikTok creator that I got it from. Also, I noticed that my husband pointed out that I tend to smack my lips a lot. So if y'all hear me hesitating, it's because I'm trying to consciously remind myself not to do that. Because I was listening to the episodes and I'm like, yeah, that's mad annoying. So I'm going to try to do better with that. We are growing and getting better. So that's that. That's why you might hear me hesitating, because I'm making sure I'm not doing that. But here it is. Yeah, so it was an iced, honey bun iced latte. So it was a half tablespoon of honey, 1 tablespoon Torani brown sugar cinnamon syrup. She did two pumps of Torani white chocolate sauce. I did 2 pumps or 2 tablespoons of white chocolate sauce. I did 1 tablespoon white chocolate sauce, 1 tablespoon white chocolate syrup. Then you can either use your instant espresso or your Nespresso pod. I ended up doing 3 shots because 2, I felt like I had too much milk in there, so I did 3 shots. And then your milk or half of choice and ice. Line your cup with the Torani or your Torani. I have a different brand. I'm going to go back to the Torani though, but line your cup with your white chocolate sauce. Do your ice, your milk of choice, and then your espresso on top of that. And then for your cold foam, I just used the can, but she made a vanilla bean sweet cream cold foam. I haven't gotten the vanilla bean paste from Trader Joe's yet, but she did 3 tablespoons heavy whipping cream, 2 tablespoons of 2% milk, and 2 pumps of the Torani vanilla bean syrup or the vanilla bean paste. I think she did like a teaspoon of the vanilla bean paste. So it was absolutely delicious. I, of course, made a video. It's not up yet on my TikTok. But all of my iced coffee videos are on my personal TikTok, not my podcast TikTok. So if you ever want to see that, go to my personal TikTok. But anyways, so that is the iced coffee of the week. Crochet update. I have started a new pattern in addition to working on my husband's polo, because working with a 3.5 millimeter hook is taking me forever. So I am working on a pattern by Cakes Creations. I'm in her Facebook group, Dope People Crochet. Yes, so Cakes Creations is her name. Of course, I'm going to tag her and link the pattern, but the one that I bought and I'm working on right now is her I'm also going to put the timestamp now if y'all want to skip past all of the preliminaries. But I should have had this ahead of time, so my apologies. But the pattern that I'm using from Cakes Creations is... Yep, here it is. Okay, it's her vintage piece sweater. That is the pattern that I'm working on right now. I will post a picture of the sweater and the link of where you can purchase it yourself. But it's working up pretty quickly, so it's great to break up the my husband's polo with that one. So, okay, all of that is now out of the way. So we are getting into the story. So this week we are talking about Dr. Devon Horton. So, Dr. Devon Horton's story begins with promise, the kind that makes you believe public education is in good hands. Dr. Devon Horton built a distinguished career on the foundation of educational equity and systemic reform, achieving national recognition before facing a sweeping federal indictment that alleges deep-seated financial corruption. So, a little bit about his academic foundations and early career trajectory. Dr. Horton's academic trajectory established him as a credentialed leader focused on administration and reform. He received his bachelor's degree in elementary education from Jackson State University, and he later cemented his executive qualifications by earning both a master's degree and a doctorate in educational leadership from Chicago State University. His professional history prior to leading Evanston Skokie School District 65, D65, included significant roles across multiple districts. He served as a principal and an assistant principal within Chicago Public Schools, then as the deputy superintendent for East St. Louis School District 189 in Illinois, and subsequently as the chief of schools for Jefferson County Public Schools in Kentucky. Central to Dr. Horton's identity as a public servant was his commitment to educational equity. He advocated for anti-racist education and famously operated under the philosophy, quote, students do not fail. It's the system that we create as adults that fail our students, end quote, which I absolutely love. This commitment positioned him predominantly in statewide reform efforts, leading to his selection to serve on the Illinois State Board of Education's Inclusive American History Commission. His dedication to these principles resulted in high-level recognition. In the 2022-2023 academic year, while serving at D65, he was named the Joseph E. Hill Superintendent of the Year by the National Alliance of Black School Educators. This award specifically honors current superintendents who have demonstrated leadership that resulted in, quote, significant positive outcomes for the students of African descent, end quote. I believe Dr. Hill from last week, I believe she also got this award. So, interesting. But, so, him taking over District 65. So, Dr. Horton began his tenure as superintendent of Evanston Skokie School District 65 in June 2020. D65 is a suburban Chicago district serving approximately 5,800 K-8 students. His leadership coincided directly with the administrative challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. His time in Evanston lasted until June 30th, 2023. During his period of leadership, Dr. Horton spearheaded several high-profile initiatives aimed at improving student outcomes and rectifying historical inequities. These included the implications of the Miracles Continuous Improvement Plan during the 2020-2021 school year, which involved action items focused on supporting educator growth, building family partnerships, and ensuring long-term financial stability. A particularly sensitive and crucial project was the advancement of the Student Assignment Plan. This plan included attendance boundary changes and funding allocated for the construction of a new school in the city's Fifth Ward, a predominantly black community that had been without a public neighborhood school since Foster School closed in 1979. That's a period of 43 years that this neighborhood did not have a neighborhood school. And Chicago, we all know Chicago is huge. So having to bus and get these neighborhood kids to all of these different 43 years is like, that's ridiculous. But I'm glad he, did something to change that. But the nature of Dr. Horton's alleged misconduct becomes clearer than viewed against the backdrop of these high stakes reform efforts. Taking the helm during a massive systemic disruption such as the pandemic and simultaneously launching complex, politically sensitive equity initiatives like Miracles and the Fifth Ward School Project necessitated the rapid deployment of specialized consultants and resources. This operating environment, characterized by urgency and systemic flux, often resulted in less grandeur oversight of financial mechanisms. The alleged fraud scheme began in 2020, as a lot of scam frauds did, and persisted across the entirety of his D65 tenure. The critical observation here is that the urgency and perceived moral imperative of these equity programs, which inherently require consulting services for implementation, provided a plausible and powerful administrative cover for securing and executing large, specialized public contracts quickly, often bypassing the closer scrutiny of the school board, as Dr. Horton allegedly did, quote, of his own accord, end quote. So here we go. The anatomy of the federal indictment. So in October 2025, a federal grand jury in Chicago formally indicted Devon Horton on 17 federal counts related to alleged financial misconduct committed during his tenure at D65. These charges encompass a sophisticated kickback scheme, as we are seeing happens a lot, and direct embezzlement, painting a picture of calculated public corruption. The indictment lists 17 counts, prominently featuring charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. Prosecutors allege that the criminal conduct spanned the period from 2020 through 2023. The scheme involved issuing more than $280,000 in contracts from D65 to companies controlled by 3 personal associates. In exchange for steering these public funds, Horton allegedly received kickbacks totaling between $80,000 and $85,000. Beyond the kickback scheme, though, Horton is also charged with direct theft from the school district through the misuse of his district purchasing card, his P card, involving misappropriated funds exceeding, this man swiped that card for funds exceeding $30,000. Like, how did you not think they wasn't going to catch on to $30,000? I don't understand. And they never have an exit. Okay, anyways. The fraud scheme was allegedly executed with the assistance of 3 longtime friends who were also indicted alongside Horton. The 4 defendants are Dr. Horton, of course, 48, former superintendent of D65, Antonio Ross, 48, of Chicago, principal of Chicago's Hyde Park Academy High School, associated with the company Connecting the Dots Leadership Initiative, LLC. Samuel Ross, 46, of Bruin, Illinois, owner of Asset Protection Specialist, LLC. And Alfonso Lewis, 48, of Chicago, athletic director of Hyde Park Academy, associated with New Flight 35 Sports and Academic Academy, LLC. The mechanism of the conspiracy involved creating shell companies designed to pose as legitimate vendors and submit fraudulent invoices to the Evanston, Skokie, and Chicago school districts for services that were never rendered or grossly inflated. This sounds like the Detroit kickback scheme. Dr. Horton's role was allegedly critical. He utilized his authority as superintendent to steer contracts to these companies. Furthermore, the indictment alleges that Horton actively concealed his personal financial relationship with the three co-defendants to hide his direct interest in the contracts, thereby defrauding the district and taxpayers. And this is why I have such an issue. If you listen to last week's episode, the principals in the Detroit kickback scheme and Dr. Horton and his co-conspirators, they all blatantly knew what they were doing. I am still not convinced that Dr. Hill from last week with the Atlanta, or the first week, with the Atlanta cheating scandal, I'm still not convinced that she knew what was going on. Did she create an environment that made it, I don't want to say easy, but made it seem like it was necessary to cheat? Yes, I agree with that. But was she actively involved in and knew about the cheating? I'm not convinced. So I'm so sad that she was never able to get her day in court to clear her name. But people like this who knew what they were doing is totally different. He literally withheld his personal interest, which is, like I said, it defrauded the district and taxpayers. So, okay. Which we see happening a lot. So here are the specifications of the fraudulent contracts and losses. The combined value of the fraudulent contracts steered to the three companies totaled approximately $296,500. The structure and alleged financial flow of the scheme indicate a systemic effort to siphon public money through three distinct corporate entities. So, here we are with the contracts. Again, this is the breakdown of the financial fraud of D65 between 2020 and 2023. So we have Connecting the Dots Leadership Initiative, LLC. This was Antonio Ross. His contract period was October 2021 through May 2023. And the total payments D65 made to him or his company was $139,500. The alleged service purpose was leadership consulting. And then the kickback that Horton got out of that $139,500 was approximately $41,900, which was funneled via sibling. Then we have Asset Protection Specialist, LLC, which was Samuel Ross's company. His contract was June 2022 through June 2023. The total approximate payments to him was $133,000, which is crazy because Antonio Ross was 2 years. Samuel Ross is 1 year, but the amounts are about the same. So again, his was $133,000. His alleged service purpose was implementing sports education, but the kickback that Horton got was unspecified. We don't really know. Or at least I couldn't find it. Then we have New Flight 35 Sports and Academic Academy, LLC, Alfonso Lewis, from December 2022 through May 2023. Total payments, $24,000. We don't know, or I couldn't find what the alleged service was, and I couldn't find what the kickbacks that Horton got from that. So the contracts of all of the companies ran from 2020 to 2023, totaling about $296,500, and Horton got between $80,000 and $85,000 in kickbacks from that. So the most detailed mechanism described in the indictment relates to Connecting the Dots Leadership Initiative owned by Antonio Ross. This company received the largest contract payment totaling $139,500. Prosecutors alleged that approximately $41,900 of this amount was paid to Horton either directly or indirectly, with some funds purportedly routed through Horton's sibling to mask the traction trail. That's why I said funneled through sibling. So, Asset Protection Specialist LLC, owned by Samuel Ross, received, like I said, $133,000. The indictment emphasizes that these companies were not legitimate service providers, but were allegedly established solely to obtain vendor status and receive payments from District 65, which would then be partially kicked back to the superintendent. So that is the contract portion. So now we're going to get into the direct embezzlement, which was the P card misuse. So in addition to the kickback conspiracy, Horton faces charges related to the improper use of his district-issued purchasing card, P card, which is a credit card designated strictly for district-related expenditures such as office supplies, things like that the district might need. Allegations state that he stole more than $30,000 from D65 in 2022 and 2023 by using the P card for purely personal benefit. So the P card is like back in the day when they had petty cash. I believe that's the equivalent. It's just now instead of cash, it's on a credit card. So these expenses included personal meals, gift cards, and various personal vehicle and travel costs. A significant observation regarding this financial misconduct concerns discovery and handling of the theft. Upon Dr. Horton's departure from D65 at the end of 2023 school year, the district noticed discrepancies and questioned several charges on his final P card statements. Dr. Horton immediately repaid the district for those specific identified charges. This attempt to financially mitigate the theft did not halt the investigation. After the federal investigation commenced, the United States Department of Education, working closely with D65, identified additional unauthorized P card charges beyond those initially questioned by the district, revealing a total misappropriation of, y'all, hold on to your seat, $30,845.77 through this single mechanism. This sequence of events, the attempted partial reimbursement followed by a comprehensive federal forensic review uncovering the full depth of the misuse, suggests an administrative effort by the former superintendent to contain minor detected discrepancies before a far more serious, long-running federal inquiry could expose the entirety of the financial loss. So here is the cover-up, like how this all, because this is 3 years, right? So the federal indictment extends beyond mere theft, incorporating charges that demonstrate sustained efforts by Dr. Horton to conceal his illicit activities, a concealment made possible by the institutional structure and trust inherent in his role as superintendent. Because nobody assumes or would think that a superintendent would betray the trust this badly. You didn't just defraud them once. You did it twice. You did it by doing kickbacks and directly embezzling over $30,000 of money. So this is like you double dipping. Nobody would think a superintendent is like the highest trusted position in education. Like it's like the president. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just crazy. So the U.S. Attorney of the Northern District of Illinois charged Horton with tax evasion, as they should, because we all know he wasn't paying taxes on that money. These counts stem from the allegation that he failed to report the significant illegal income, the sum of the kickbacks, $80,000 plus, and the personal P card purchases, $30,000 plus, on his federal income tax returns. Uncle Sam gonna get that money, okay? This alleged action changes the profile of the crime from simple embezzlement to a calculated long-term financial conspiracy. The failure to report income is a clear indication that the criminal activity was designed not only to siphon public funds, but also to evade governmental accountability and taxation. Furthermore, the indictment alleges a pattern of deception extending outside of D65. Horton allegedly entered into consulting contracts on his own behalf with a different public school district, concealed this external employment from D65, and fraudulently obtained payments for those services while serving as D65 superintendent. Like, he was just greedy. The cumulative intent behind these actions, defrauding his employer, steering contracts to undisclosed associates, and then deliberately hiding the financial gains from the IRS, demonstrates sophisticated criminal planning. So, the oversight, like, how did we even get here? So the longevity of the scheme, which persisted throughout Horton's 3-year tenure, 2020 to 2023, raises critical questions regarding the financial governance and oversight capabilities of the Evanston Skokie School District 65 Board. A key factor enabling the scheme was the administrative authority granted to the superintendent. The D65 board confirmed that Dr. Horton, quote, approved and executed the contracts of his own accord without specific separate board approval, end quote. This authority allowed him to unilaterally approve and commit the district to contracts totaling nearly $300,000 across the 3 alleged shell companies. The ability of a single executive to greenlight such a substantial volume of spending without a separate specific board vote represents a critical failure in the district's financial control structure. This systemic vulnerability was exploited by the alleged fraud, which required the rapid and quiet execution of consulting contracts. D65 board leadership, including President Sergio Hernandez and Vice President Dr. Nicole Pinkard, strongly stated that no current or former board members or administrators were criminally implicated, nor did they have any knowledge of Dr. Horton's alleged kickback scheme. The board expressed deep anger and characterized the allegations, if proven true, as, quote, a betrayal of our district and community, and unconscionable, end quote. The board relies heavily on, quote, significant trust, end quote, placed in the superintendent to act ethically. The fact that the federal investigation, conducted primarily by the U.S. Department of Education and the U.S. Attorney's Office, took over 2 years, commencing with the initial subpoena issued in July 2023, underscores that the mechanism of detection was federal oversight, not D65's own internal audit mechanisms. This suggests that the high level of trust and the administrative focus on navigating the crises of the pandemic and complex equity reforms created an environment where routine fiscal scrutiny was effectively neutralized. I don't think that the U.S. was really prepared for the pandemic. And God forbid something like that happens again. I'm pretty sure the financial loopholes that many people were able to exploit won't be there anymore, because the U.S. did so much in a hurry just to make sure people were okay that sadly people who were just ready to take advantage of it were able to, because they, you want your citizens to be okay. But in doing so, they didn't set up the proper checks and balances to make sure that people weren't able to exploit it. And so there are so many pandemic era schemes and frauds that I could do probably a whole season on just pandemic frauds. That's how much are out there. But so let's see. Okay, so here are the charges, the federal charges that were brought against him. So we have multiple counts of wire fraud. The alleged activity is scheming to defraud D65 via false invoices and fraudulent consulting contracts steered to 3 associates. The value or loss amount was over $280,000, which is the contract value. And the legal severity or implication is core charges establishing the conspiracy and scheme to defraud. Then we have multiple counts of embezzlement for misappropriation of public funds, specifically through sustained improper use of the district-issued P card. The value for that was over $30,000 for the P card misuse, and that legal severity or implication was direct theft by an executive public official. Then we have multiple counts of tax evasion, failure to report illegal income for the kickbacks and personal expenses on federal income tax returns. That amounted to about $110,000 for the unreported income, and then that's evidence of criminal intent and efforts at long-term concealment. So, all of the counts he got was 17 federal counts, like I said. And then the biggest alleged activity was public corruption and financial fraud. Then we have around $300,000 plus in federal public funds. And so the potential he was looking at for all of the crimes was 10 years plus in federal prison. And when the feds say 10 years, they mean 10 years. So here's the fallout for the career collapse and legal horizon. The federal indictment precipitated immediate and severe consequences for Dr. Horton's career, particularly in his subsequent role leading the DeKalb County School District in Georgia, which I'm seeing a pattern of people leaving Chicago or Baltimore and going to Atlanta. That's interesting. But anyways, so after concluding his service at D65 on June 30th, 2023, Dr. Horton assumed the superintendency of the DeKalb County School District, Georgia's third largest school system, which serves approximately 93,000 students. His arrival in DeKalb County later became entangled in the federal investigation that was already underway in Illinois. Political figures such as Georgia Senator Emanuel Jones, a Democrat of Decatur, publicly voiced deep concerns regarding the DCSD school board's decision to extend Dr. Horton's contract and increase his salary prior to the public indictment. Senator Jones alleged that there was knowledge within the DCSD board of an ongoing federal investigation, which had been active since July 2023 when D65 received the initial subpoena. This is another thing, too, that we see with these school district cases that we've been looking into. When they leave one job or one district and go to the other, there has been no effort to clean up their mess before they go. Like, you make it obvious for your scheme or your fraud to be found. Like, it seems like if you put all that effort to keep a fraud going for multiple years, you would have thought during that time, like I said, for an exit plan. If you know you're wanting to leave, you should have cleaned it up or given yourself time. You know what I'm saying? Not to glamorize the crime, but you put all this effort into the crime and no effort into the cleanup. We even see that with murder cases. They put all this effort into planning a murder, and then they don't have any plan on how to clean it up, how to get away with it. Nothing. It becomes sloppy. So it's interesting. You found another job that they were giving you they wanted to extend the contract and increase your salary, but you made no effort to make sure you didn't get caught so that you can stay in that job. I just find that crazy. Like, you're being like a half criminal at that point, which is okay. So anyways, like I said, not glamorizing crime at all. I just find that very interesting. Like, the sociologist in me is like, what was your train of thought to say, okay, I'm done with this. Let me go somewhere else, but let me not, for lack of better term, let me not clean up what I did so that I can go and not be caught, Okay, so anyways, keep it on going. So let's get into this suspension and everything. And I failed to mention that this is relatively new. Like, this indictment came down as of, I believe, 5 days ago. So the formal indictment filed in Chicago in October 2025 created immediate institutional crisis in Georgia. The DeKalb County School Board held an emergency meeting and voted to suspend Dr. Horton with pay, which is crazy, because most of the time, I don't know if there's like a legal criteria to make you have to spend them with pay. But I just think that's crazy that they didn't choose to do without pay. But so they suspended him with pay. Dr. Norman C. Sauce III, the district's chief of student services, was named acting superintendent. The political response was swift and definitive. Senator Jones publicly called for Dr. Horton's immediate dismissal, asserting that the allegations of wire fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion constituted a contract breach of public trust, end quote, and rendered him, quote, incapable of leading the DeKalb County School District, end quote. Senator Jones further urged the governor of Georgia to exercise the authority under state law to initiate a review and remove the superintendent if the board failed to take decisive action. The rapid succession of the indictment and the suspension underscores the severity of the federal charges and the intolerable exposure to public trust violations caused by high-ranking public officials. So let's get into what his defense strategy is. Dr. Horton's defense attorney, Terry Campbell, issued a statement affirming that Horton, quote, is eager to address his case in court, end quote. The defense strategy articulated immediately following the indictment centers on isolating the alleged misconduct in Illinois from his current performance in Georgia, asserting that the allegations, quote, have nothing whatsoever to do with his very successful work, end quote, in DeKalb County, citing improved attendance and academic achievement metrics. Horton's three co-defendants, Antonio Ross, Samuel Ross, and Alfonso Lewis, are also proceeding through the legal process, though the legal representation details for Lewis were not immediately available. The financial magnitude of the alleged theft and kickback scheme, totaling over $110,000 in personal gain and $280,000 in diverted contracts, combined with Dr. Horton's status as a public official, significantly heightens the potential punitive measures. Under federal sentencing guidelines, if convicted in all 17 counts, Dr. Horton faces the prospect of imprisonment exceeding 10 years. Furthermore, federal prosecutors are seeking criminal forfeiture, demanding that all four defendants surrender the money illegally acquired through the alleged scheme. So, like I said, this is a current case, so I probably would do, I'm trying to build out my Patreon. So, after we see the defendants go through the legal process, I probably will do an update bonus mini episode probably on Patreon, but that's what we have so far. The indictment of Dr. Devon Horton represents a case study in high-level public corruption defined by the calculated exploitation of administrative trust and financial controls in public education. The narrative is particularly corrosive due to the alleged perpetrator's public identity as a leading champion of systemic reform and equity. The profound implication of this case extends beyond the direct financial losses of approximately $300,000 incurred by the Evanston Skokie taxpayers. This fraud, allegedly executed by a decorated superintendent who claimed to be dismantling, quote, systems that fail our students, end quote, fundamentally erodes the public credibility of legitimate, often politically contested educational equity initiatives. Public funds intended to address historical resource deficits, such as the crucial effort to build a neighborhood school in the historically underserved 5th Ward of Evanston, were allegedly diverted into the hands of the superintendent and his associates, which makes me think he purposefully started that initiative just to steal the money. Like, did you start the initiative and then was like, let me take the money? Or was your whole intent to begin with, let me pretend like I'm going to do this, but I'm really just going to take the money? Like, which one was it? The true cost is the devastation of taxpayer trust, the distraction of educational leadership from the core mission of student welfare, and the potential to allow critics to dismiss high-stakes reform efforts as opportunities for personal enrichment. As the D65 board leadership lamented, if proven true, the alleged actions constitute an, quote, unconscionable betrayal of the students and the community. This sentiment underscores the systemic damage inflated when public executives prioritized personal financial gain over the ethical stewardship of educational resources. The federal prosecution, seeking significant prison time and forfeiture, reflects the government's recognition of the severity and this betrayal of public trust by high-ranking officials. So, y'all, let's get into this. So, sip or spill. Dr. Devon Horton built his reputation on dismantling systems that fail students. But if these allegations are true, he became the very system he warned us about. This story isn't just about theft. It's about what happens when trust becomes currency. When we hand our institutions over to leaders without accountability, hoping their passion outweighs their power. So if it's the students, the ones promised equity, who pay the highest price. So what y'all think about this? Like, do y'all think he's going to be found guilty on all these charges? Do you think he's going to take a plea? Will they even give him the option to plead? Do you think one of the defendants, one of his co-conspirators, do you think one of them will turn on him? Like, I want to know what y'all's thoughts are, especially because this hasn't gone to trial yet. I typically don't do cases that haven't gone to trial, but this one was just really, really good. So, hit me up on Instagram, or Spotify or Facebook. Let me know anywhere what y'all think about this for Sip or Spill. So, that is it. Let's get into this outro and stuff. So, this was episode 3 of Scandal in the Schools. If you love today's episode, be sure to leave a 5-star review. It really helps other true crime lovers find the show. And if you want early access, bonus coffee recipes, and our exclusive coffee break mini episodes, like I said, I am building out my Patreon. So the link for that will be in the show notes. But here is a review. I told you I'm about to start reading reviews again. So I also should have had this up. So you can leave reviews on Apple Podcasts, but you can also comment on Spotify. So I do respond to all of the comments on Spotify. So please leave a comment. I will respond. I'm going to start reading those too, but I'm just going to pick like one from both so I don't run through all of them. So this episode will be a review from Apple. Next episode will be a comment from Spotify. So this was an interesting one. So far I have a 4.9 out of 5, and that's because of this review that I'm about to read that I don't have a 5-star rating. So this review from Moody Rudy L, titled it is a 4-star review, says, the host does a great job of telling the story. Thank you. She does not overdo the homegirl thing like some of the other Black female podcasters. I like the sound of her voice, thank you. But, in capital letters, sis says, way too much, which is the title of her review. It was making me crazy during the first episode. She also audibly drinks. So let's get into this review. First of all, thank you so much for listening. I'm glad you liked it. Hopefully you're still listening. Thank you for, saying that. I do a great job of telling the story. I do want to say, though, that you can give a compliment without putting somebody else down. So saying she does not overdo the homegirl thing like some of the other Black female podcasters, I'm not really sure. like you could have said that in a way without putting other Black female podcasters down, especially because most of them have been my inspiration for getting started, and everybody's voice is necessary and is important, and everybody has space in the podcasting community. If that's not your thing, that's okay, but you don't have to mention it in a way of complimenting me, if that makes sense. So you can just say that, I don't know, just keep that in mind when you're doing reviews. I would prefer if you not put other people down in an effort to compliment me. And then, saying, I probably still do that now, but I'm also a newer show, like this is my second season, like the 13th or 14th episode. So I'm learning, I'm getting better, I'm growing. I am more conscious of what I'm saying. Like how I said, I noticed that I was smacking my lips a lot, so I tried not to do that as much in this episode. I'm hoping that I'm also cutting down on my ums. So that's another thing. But I do audibly drink because, it's a iced drink show. So I like to add that personality of me taking drinks. So if that does bug you, if, maybe you have auditory issues, I'm not sure if this might not be the show. Not saying you in particular, but anybody else listening who that might annoy you, I do audibly drink in my episodes. I don't edit that out. So yeah, I read it. I wanted to read this one because it gave a lot of points for me to bring up about my show. So yeah, thank you for the review. I hope you're still listening. And if you would like a chance for your review to be read, go ahead and leave a review on Apple. Hopefully it's a 5-star review. If you hate the show, don't leave a review. Just email me, blackcoffeecrimecrochet@gmail.com. We will talk about it there, but please don't leave a review, a bad review. So there's that. You can also find me at Black Coffee Crime Crochet on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook. I also started a discussion group for the podcast. So if you want to talk about things in there, you can. You do have to answer the questions to get in. But yeah, this has been an awesome episode. Hopefully you all love it. I will see you on the comments everywhere on social media. But until next time, keep your coffee strong, your stitches tight, and your receipts organized. Bye.
Disclaimer. Great effort is made to ensure that all materials used in Black Coffee Crime and Crochet adhere to fair use guidelines. No copyright infringement is intended. If you are the copyright owner or represent the owner of any material used in this content and have concerns about its use, please contact me and I will promptly address the issue.